Okay, so welcome again, and thank you for joining our session today, where Florian and myself will talk about technology application and where we can find new applications for existing technologies. But before we start right in, we have a quick introduction. So my name is Niklas. I've been working at HYVE for 12 years now, and I'm leading the community innovations practice. So my practice, I always work on projects where it's about innovating with different stakeholders, integrating communities into the innovation process. And that's something that we'll also see today. That's very important in order to find new applications for existing technologies.
Yeah, thank you, Niklas. And my name is Florian. I'm in the strategy and empowerment team at HYVE. I'm here since 3 years. Before, I've been the founder and part of an international business development team. And in my role, I'm helping companies looking into the future, defining where they should start searching for innovations. I help them to organize the process so that they can realize the ideas. And finally, I helping companies in innovation projects. And here in the last couple of years, I supported companies, especially with technologies and helping them bringing existing technologies to new markets and finding application fields where they can leverage their existing technologies. And I think with this said, we provide you with a short introduction to what HYVE is and what we are doing. And I have to hand over again to my colleague, Niklas.
Yes, thank you, Flo. So just as a quick background about what we do at HYVE and how that fits into finding new applications for existing technologies. So we usually start our process with strategic foresight, so helping our clients envisioning a future 10, 15 years from now and understanding how technologies might change, how the market might change, and where they can be a relevant player in the market. So really understanding where the future may move and adapting the offering accordingly. And then we usually go into the product innovation stage, where it's more about developing new products, new services, new business models. And that's also where technology seeks application fits in really well. So this is about finding problems and understanding user problems and then developing solutions. Today, we'll talk about how to do it the other way around, having solutions, finding problems that need solving, and then continuing on into the product development. So really helping to bring products to life, to bring services to life, be it hardware or software. And we don't do that alone. We do that in a big network. On the one hand, within our group of companies, we do that worldwide. So we have a huge network here. And this allows us to have access to many experts in different areas and different fields. So that's really helpful to find new applications, to understand different markets. And what's also helpful is that we are very much cross-industry. So we don't really work with a specific industry, but we really try to be very broad in our projects. And that has allowed us to develop a very huge network of experts from a variety of fields. And that really allows us to have access to this network in order to validate different technologies in different markets.
Great. And with that said, we head into the topic of our today's webinar, which is about technologies that seeks application. But before we head into this topic, I have one question for you, for all the people who are here in the panel. And the question is like, when you think back in regards to the last 10, 15 years, what in your opinion have been the most disruptive technologies? What had the most impact on your life? And what technologies come to your mind when you think on that question? And this is also a short introduction to our panel that we have in our Q&A session that will follow later. So please type in your opinions, type in your ideas into our feed using the chat version. And looking forward, what kind of innovations, what kind of technologies have disrupted your life in the last 10 to 15 years?
You should be able to find the Q&A session down in the menu of your Zoom call. So it's either Q&A or F&A if you are in Germany. So feel free to just type in your answers to our question here. And we can already see first answers coming in. So of course we see AI. Yeah, that's one. We see VR as a suggestion here. Oh, we have one very specific one: Blue Motion soft close functionality in furniture. So yeah, I think that's a very specific one. Internet and e-commerce. Then yeah, AI again, ChatGPT and the like. We see payment technology in China, very specific. So I think that's very interesting field as well. Autonomous technology, so technology doing its own thing. IoT, with apps on phones that change how we interact with technology. And the smartphone overall as a game changer. So yeah, really cool. Fintech as like a whole industry that really disrupted the finance industry. So yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts and answers.
Very cool. And we did this exercise ourselves, and we also found some of the proposals that you have done here, especially when it comes to AI, or when you think about IoT, all the technologies that you see here. We also come up with solar technology and vaccination technologies that we have identified. But of course, also blockchain is something that is very disruptive, and a lot of other topics like 3D printing. And yeah, very cool what came to your mind in such a short time. And the question that we are asking ourselves as innovators is, where does this technology arise? Does this technology arise from a market need, from a consumer who has a pain point? Or does this technologies arise by development, by research, sometimes also by accident? And this is what we are talking today about, because these are some two completely different approaches on how you can innovate and how you can create a new technology. And this first process, when technologies arise from a need, is called market pull. So here, companies, innovators really looking for a market need, a demand, a pain point, and then they try to solve that, and then they use technology to solve these issues and try to gain value and try to gain growth. But on the other side, we see a lot of technologies. For example, AI. If you see AI today, then we have a technology that really seeks for application fields, that seeks for use cases where it can be applied and where it can be used. And when you have a technology and you search for the right market and for the right use cases, then we are talking in innovation about the technology, the tech push process. And this is a very valuable and a very very wide known and applied approach within our field. And it's an approach that is difficult to pursue and difficult to apply, but worth to do it. And when we look back in history, then we also have seen some best practices where this process has created great value for certain companies.
So yeah, here we have some examples of products that you probably know quite well. And the first one is Post-it notes. So this actually was a technology developed by 3M on accident. So it's an adhesive that is activated by pressure. And it was first developed coincidentally, and they didn't have an application, but then a colleague came to the inventor and said, hey, maybe that's something for bookmarks. And that's how they started trying out where they could actually use this and how it could be applied then to different areas. And that's what then finally turned into Post-it, a really huge business for 3M by now. And all of us innovators, professional innovators, probably know and love Post-its. So here, a coincidence that actually led to this discovery, and then another coincidence that led to a nice application for this technology. Another example is Dyson. So you probably know all of the vacuums from Dyson, and these vacuums, they were inspired by industrial cyclones, so a similar technology that were used in sawmills. So they were used to remove sawdust. And Mr. Dyson, he saw that and he thought, okay, couldn't we apply that to household vacuum cleaners so that they don't need a filter or a bin to collect it, but they can just work with the same mechanism. So here it's something where technology was inspired from another industry and basically it was transferred into the household use. So another way to think about how technologies that are already in existence can be applied in different areas. And then last but not least, we have a technology that has been inspired by nature, Velcro. So this was something that was inspired by burdocks. So these little sticky parts of plants, basically seeds of plants, where the inventor noticed that these burdocks stuck to the clothes and also to his dog's fur. And he thought, okay, that's very interesting. It sticks really well. Couldn't we transfer that into an actual technology? And he developed a solution based on this technology from nature that eventually then found its application in, for example, the clothing industry, in apparel, but also in the automotive industry and many, many different areas of life. So yeah, as we can see, there's many different areas where we can actually transfer technology. So for example, from technology that is discovered by accident, maybe a technology that is already in use, elsewhere, or something that maybe is inspired by nature, where we then still need to figure out what can we actually use it for.
Exactly. I think that's a very valuable point, because here is where the tech push process gets into play, because it's a source for business development. And I think what Niklas has already stressed is that technology can arise within companies through certain occasions. It can be either structurally invented, or it can happen by accident. But to bring it to the market and develop something out of it, this can also follow a very structured process. And this structured process is called in general tech push. And what we call it here in today's webinar, and what we do then in particular, is the tech seeks application process. And it's a source for business development, because here companies can really start in the core, in the heart of their business, like in an existing market with an existing technology, and they try to bring it to a new market. And doing that comes with several advantages, because by doing that mean that you try and you leverage existing capabilities, existing IP. So you build on something that is already there, and you try to find for these capabilities, for the assets that you have already in the company, you try to find new sources for revenue. And to do that and to build on this also helps you to accelerate your innovation process, to accelerate your business development process, meaning that you have a faster time to market, because you already know the technology. So the risk of feasibility, or that in the end that you can have a feasible product, is really mitigated, because you already own the technology. You already know what is capable, what is not, and you can design it to a particular market, tailored to the needs on a particular field. So this really reduces the risk of failure in terms of feasibility. And last but not least, what is also very important is that when you do that, you can improve and you can prolong the product life cycle of your existing technologies, meaning that when you bring it to another market, you can extend what you have, you can still build on it, and you can exploit it even more. And I think these are really strong advantages for applying tech push, applying tech seeks application processes and pursuing it. And I think it makes especially sense in the DACH region, where we are currently in and where we are acting with, where we're seeing a lot of companies. And why is that so? It is so because here in this region, we have a lot of technology leaders. We have a lot of hidden champions that grew throughout the last decades based on their technology. Yeah. And we see that they have strong R&D departments, that they have really strong scientific collaborations. We also see a lot of universities in this area that invest a lot in developing and pushing technologies forward. And they have a strong boundaries with companies. And then together they bring these innovations to the market and these technologies. And of course, we have a strong source of talent in this area that can be also exploited to use it to further development technologies and to bring them to new markets. And here it's really about finding new markets for something existing to drive growth. But on the other side, what we see, especially we as an agency, as a consultancy, is that in these areas, these companies get, especially in the last couple of years, highly disrupted. And we see that their production capacities, for example, are underutilized, and they have now free assets where they don't know what to do with them. Yeah, think of the automotive industry. Think of the change from a combustion engine to an electronic engine. So many companies here seeing that their core business is fading away, but they still have assets, they still have capacity. So the question is, what do I do with this underutilized production capacities? And I also have these topics here that we also see companies in that area that invented a technology, but they really ask themselves, or they really have the problem that this technology does not fully pay off for their core business, and it cannot leverage or cannot unleash its full potential. And also what we see is that, especially in this area, companies truly overlook the application fields and the potential of the technologies and the assets that they have here in the market and they have here in their companies. And this is what we also experience then, that a lot of companies start trying to build on their technologies and to follow a technology 6 application process. But we also have to say that that is not an easy way. It's not an easy process, especially when you compare it, for example, to a market pull process. Why is it not so easy, and why we see here a lot of barriers, and why companies often fail when they want to bring their existing technologies or a newly invented technology to a market, is that they often lack the resources. They lack resources to focus on the exploration of the technology in terms of time, in terms of human resources, but also in terms of money to invest. And they lack the right validation methods. So they really lack the methods on, okay, I have a new technology, or I have my technology. How can I pursue with that? How can I have a structured process on identifying what is the potential? Where does it fit? And they also underestimate or are uncertain, underestimate the market requirements for a certain technology. So sometimes we have a lot of see companies doing hypotheses that their technology can serve every market, and not knowing the exact peculiarities of such a market. And what else we are seeing is that companies have also organizational barriers when working or when pursuing a tech push process, is the fear of sharing their insights, especially when it's about existing technologies. Yeah, like really opening up and sharing their knowledge to identify where else it can fit. But on the other side, also seeing the problem that some companies missing a network, missing the right people they can approach to see where their knowledge, where their technology can be applied. And this is something that very often happens in that process, is when companies come up with a new technology, they are really focused on pushing the technology forward. They're really focusing on the technology itself and further develop the technology, but not focusing on the market, not focusing on the use cases that it can really serve. So we often see companies having a technology, they really develop it not to the target market. They develop it straight in the wrong direction. And here it needs a structured approach to help companies and to find the right application fields for the technology. And for this problem, so for this challenges, we have the Tech6 application process. And this is a very distinct 4-step process where we really start, and that's what we do here at HYVE is, we really start with an analysis, with a really short period of time. We really try to understand and to analyze the technology, deep dive into what is the potential, but what is the relevant assets of the technology, and where are the core competences within the technology, within the company, and what are the assets that we want to leverage, that we want to bring to a new market. Once we have identified that, we really open up our minds and explore and identify opportunities, meaning like really going out there and see like, where could these assets, where could these capabilities be applied, in which industries, in which application fields, but also very particular in which use cases. Based on this knowledge, we then try to define what are opportunities, where does it really fit? And by doing this, by having defined this, we're really going into the analysis phase, and where we evaluate and try to understand what is the real market demand behind this use case. We really want to see what is the pain point, what is the need we can fulfill when we bring our technology to this market. And once we have checked these requirements and checked if it's feasible to go in this market, we then are able to design the solution, design what we have, design our technology, tailor to the market, so that we can then go there and can going to the market and can bring it there. And as I have said that, we have seen a lot of companies in the past years that have had some of these challenges, and that approached us and asked us, hey, what can I do with my technology? I have invented accidentally in technology. Where can I find, where should I start with my business development approach? And one of these companies was Borealis, an Austrian-based company in the chemical industry that really by accident invented a heating technology, a new heating technology. And this is what you can see here. And what we have done firstly is like really identified, okay, this is the heating technology. So what it is capable of, and what you can see here on the right hand, this is like the capabilities and the assets and the characteristics of the technology. And we really try to work that out with them to see like what it is able to do and what can we do, what can be the value proposition. And based on these insights, the company was really like, okay, now we're thinking we have a heating technology. So heating can be applied maybe everywhere. So we have a great product. We just have to know where we should start, because afterwards we will conquer the world. And here as a consultant, we were like, okay, let's see if we can validate this hypothesis. And what we did is like, we used the technology and brought it out and put it into the HYVE crowd, what Niklas will talk on later. So the HYVE crowd is like a community of 10,000 innovators where we collaborate together as HYVE. And we showed the Borealis technology to them and asked them, hey, what would you do with such a heating technology, and where would you apply it? And within 3 weeks, we had more than 100 participants who approached us with over 300 contributions, with 300 use cases that we of course enriched, that we of course challenged. But these 300 contribution and identified use cases were our starting point for heating technology. And here we not just received ideas, we really received elaborated concepts, and really in particular described use cases that we could then further elaborate. And what we have seen is that with this input from the community and from the HYVE crowd, that in, of course, more than in 10 out of 9 life areas of human needs, so in 10 ecosystems, so to say, heating technologies can be used. And that was very interesting and showed that, yeah, there is a really huge potential. But what we did then is like we started to evaluate if it's really like this, and if all of these 8 ecosystems, 8 life areas can be a potential market for the technology. And what we did here is, on the one hand side, that we really defined what is important for us, to find the right market. And we did that together with the company. And here on the right hand, you see what we have chosen back then. What we've chosen is, the one hand side, hey, how big is the need, the pain for such a technology in this area? And how, what is it and how big it is? Because on how big, you can see how big is the market and how big is the business opportunity. And of course, there must be a strategic fit. So does this market, this industry, fit to the strategy of Borealis? So to say, when you go to in the military district, you don't want to do that, maybe because it does not fit to the values of your company. So this is a sum of industries that you then strike out early on. And then you make also the feasibility check. So what we have said is like that we thought in the beginning the technology is like really innovative, really disruptive, and can be applied everywhere. But when looking into certain industries, we figured out that meaning a product that heats fast can mean something completely different in the automotive industry than in the food industry. So in the food industry, 10 minutes of warming something up could be fast, while in the automotive industry, a second could be already very slow. And then you can see where your technology and where your value propositions fit. And of course, what was very important for us in that area is like a fast time to market. Like, where can we find a market where we have an early entry and where we can show that the product works and that we can further learn and scale the technology. And what we have seen here is that, for example, again, you might think about the medical industry, which could be super attractive for such a product, but we strike it out because it has a really long time to market to get in there because of certifications and so on, and licenses. So in the end, we could, out of these 300 applications or use cases, we could really decrease here our search field, so to say. And what we did then, after we have prioritized that, really went into validation interviews. So we really went out to the market and interviewed experts in the prioritized industries, and we really wanted to ask them, okay, how does it work? What would you do with such a technology? And we really validated the insights from the community and tried to gain here deeper insights. And what was a very cool effect is here that when you talk to this expert from these companies, that you already build a relationship, and you might already start building a relationship with a future partner of you who might be already open for collaboration, open for buying the product later, but maybe also open for developing the product together with you. So that was also part of our approach, of our open innovation approach, to really immerse, to really involve early on here the right partners, the right stakeholders. And after this second interview phase, where we really went into depth, we did a second validation, and here we really validated the value proposition against each of the identified use cases. And so in the end, we identified 3 really important, or 3 high potential industries and application fields that then the company further pursued and went into it. So, and then we really decided on one of these application fields in a strategic workshop, and then went into this market, really evaluated it in particular, and helped the company to further design and to further develop their product, so that today they have this product on the market. And we really could accelerate a process that had taken 1.5 years since they approached us, from not knowing where to go with this invention to half year later, they knew their starting field, they knew their industry, and could now accelerate their whole process and are now out on the market. So it was a very successful approach that we had here. But this was not the only one, as I said. I think we are doing that very often, and we have a lot of customers that we could help here in a couple of years. And another case that is, I think, showing some good insights about how tech SEEK's application processes can work is now again shown by Niklas, who will dive into a case by Voestalpine and will explain more about on the HYVE crowd and how we leverage our open innovation approach here.
Perfect. Thank you, Flo. And I can see that we already get some questions. We'll answer all of them in the end. If you have any, feel free to already put them in the Q&A section so we can answer all of them in the end. So now to this case. So this is a case study from Voestalpine. They are a huge steel manufacturer based in Austria. And they had developed a new product. It's now called tailor-made functional steel. And basically what it does, as you can see here on the left side, is there's a functional printing layer on the steel sheet. So you have huge steel sheets. They can have different depth. They can have different sizes. And this functional printing can have different functionalities. So for example, you can use it to heat the metal sheet. You can use it to operate. You can use it to monitor or to measure, and without having to have any other sensors attached to the steel. But it's really just the functional printing that is on the steel sheet. And we put this technology out on the crowd. Again, we described these functionalities that you saw on the previous page. And we just asked our community to think about use cases. And they came up with 177 different use cases. It's about 100 people that participated out of our community of 10,000. And they did this in a very open approach. So basically, every contribution is open to everyone. Everybody can get inspired by what a previous person has already submitted, can build on that, get inspired, think about different applications, and also interact with experts from Voestalpine on the platform to get some feedback about what is actually feasible and what can be done. So how does this work on the crowd? So it's basically a two-sided market. On the one hand, we have a community of innovators. Here, some exemplary pictures on the left-hand side that come from various different backgrounds. And on the other hand, we have our clients who pose a challenge. There are some larger companies, but there are also smaller companies who use the platform in order to put out questions. And in this case, the question was just, what are application areas for this new steel technology? And with the questions, they provide some incentives. So it's basically prize money for the winners. Usually we award the first 10 submissions that we find most valuable. And in return, we get the ideas, we get the solutions, we get all of the use cases and applications. But we also get this kind of discussion and feedback that I talked about. So it's always an iterative process where over time ideas develop. And in a co-creative process, we get into really interesting use cases. So now, who is this community and why do they participate? So you can see here it's 10,000 people and they are spread globally. We definitely have a strong focus on the German-speaking regions. Lots of great engineers here, as we've already learned from Flo. So that can also be helpful if you are looking for solutions and not for problems. But they are very diverse, so they come from all over the place. They come from all different regions. So there are some from the US, but really we have all different kind of countries. And that's really helpful because people in different areas of the world have different perspectives. And they also have different problems and they know different industries. They know different ways of working. And these people, they are very, not only diverse in the region that they come from, also age-wise, they are very diverse. We have some younger students on there, but we also have some people who are already retired on there. But overall, it's very hard to put them into different categories. So more than 50% we can't really put into any one box. So maybe we have a neuroscientist on the community, and then we have an architect, and then we have a surgeon, you name it. And all of these different backgrounds help us come up with really, really diverse ideas. And what motivates the people, and I think that's something that is very interesting, is not just the prize money, the incentives, but it's also really this taking part in the community, this exchange, and having a challenge and competing with other people. So for some people, it's like doing a Sudoku or a crosswords puzzle at night to get the brain going, to become creative, to start thinking again, and to work on some challenging projects. And for a lot of participants, the HYVE crowd is the place where they can actually do this. So when we have all of these ideas from the platform, and yeah, in this case, it was almost 200, we first evaluate them on the platform. So we look at the ideas who seem promising. We maybe rule out ideas that are not feasible at all, using similar criteria to what Florian has talked about before. And then we cluster them. So we try to understand patterns in the data. So here you can see an example of really how ideas are connected to each other. We can use semantic analysis here to understand different areas where a technology could be applied. And that then helps us to also build these kind of living areas that Flo showed before, where we can see, okay, there are different areas where we could apply the technology. Which ideas are actually good? Where do we see actually potential? Where is the market potential high? Maybe one area we've seen a lot of ideas, but maybe we need to come up with another idea in that area because the area is interesting, but the ideas that have been submitted so far are not that interesting. And with these clusters and evaluations, we then go into the next step, into a shortlisting. Usually it's a workshop where we get together with experts from the technology owner, from our clients, and discuss a pre-selection of the ideas in order to determine which ones are actually promising, where do we see the most potential, what is feasible, what fits to the strategy. Before we then sometimes go into a next step, it's kind of optional, but we oftentimes then go into a jury meeting where we get some people very high up the hierarchy to actually decide what are the areas where we want to be involved, where do we want to invest our money in order to bring ideas to the market and actually implement them. And that can also be very important, this jury meeting, for stakeholder management. So getting the right stakeholders involved at the right time. And then ideally, we find some gems or either identify them from the crowd or develop them on our own that can then actually be implemented and can be brought to market. And Voestalpine has also managed to do that. And they had a very good process in place to actually then put ideas that came from the contest actually into the market. So one idea, and we can see it here on the left side, was Keep Cooked Food Warm. That was the title of the idea, submitted by this user, Kate Rushton from the UK. She's an UX designer who thought that it could be used, for example, in bakeries to keep fresh food warm. And Voestalpine, they took this idea and they used it in their new business incubator, which is basically like a venture builder where they have a lot of freedom to experiment with new technologies, where they can experiment in new markets. And they partnered with a company to actually build kind of racks that can be used in canteens to keep the food warm. And this actually then was on the market a little more than a year later. So really, I think it's important to have this absorptive capacity also to really take these ideas and give them a home inside the company, to then put them on the market. And here this worked really well because they had the technology already in place. They could build something really quickly with the right partner and put it out onto the market. And the second idea, this was actually the winner of the contest, was one idea that, as I mentioned, it didn't get implemented as it was. It was the idea supermarket display rack with inventory control. So basically the idea was to have smart supermarket racks that could display, provide a data stream to the price tags. So you could change the price tags automatically, but that could also take the inventory. So tell you, is there something in the rack or is it empty? And that was the idea here by Aditya, a user from India, who's a consultant and does a lot of crowd work on the site. And this idea then turned into this intelligent locker system. So basically a locker, for example, when you get a parcel and you get it delivered to such a locker, or you put it in there for it to be collected. And with the technology, basically the rack on its own, without any other sensors, can detect whether there is something in the locker or not. So whether it's empty or not. So it's a little transfer from the supermarket, but still pretty much a very similar idea. And it's really cool to see how this has then, through the new business incubator, turned into a system that is now on the market. So now 43 minutes into our webinar, and we haven't talked about AI once. So we'll do that to close off, because we always get this this question. So what about AI? Can we just do it all with AI? And we think AI can be an enhancer to the process. So it can help us to maybe do the research quicker, to allow us to validate use cases.
Okay, some great to talk about technology, and then when technology takes off, but we have a solution for that. Niklas is just around the corner and can now continue here on my phone.
That's a perfect backup. So yes, I think really for the creative process, that's where nobody uses the AI, because that's where the obvious ideas come from. But it's really helpful in understanding the problem, understanding different areas, doing this kind of research, and then formulating the ideas in a nice way. So in that regard, I think there's a lot of potential in enhancing the process through AI, but I think still we need the human genius basically to find really these new applications and really novel ideas. And with email, if you want to connect and maybe talk about your technology and whether we think that such a process could help your technology to find new applications. And now we will dive into the Q&A. So we've seen that there have already been a lot of questions submitted. So Martin, thank you for sharing also the comment on war for talent. So I think, it's very interesting to think about also how the hidden champions can really compete for the right people. And then your follow-up question was, did you recognize any approach differences between public companies and family-owned businesses? And that's a very good question. I would say not, but maybe Flo has a different opinion on that. I would say it's more about how the companies handle the process and how willing they are to also have a process in place to really follow up with the ideas. Because you can have many great ideas and use cases, but really I think it's about the execution in the end that is really important.
Yeah, I think, maybe to elaborate on that, because it's a very good question, is that we had both. Like we had companies like really large corporates that are stock noted, but also companies with a family background. And I think like process wise, there's not a big difference. But what we see is really like working with the humans, working with the people in such companies. And in a particular case that we have faced and that I have faced in a project is like when really the owner of such a family-owned company is backing up this process and is pushing this process forward. This can have a real impact because this can really push things forward. That can accelerate the process, and it really accelerates then the whole let's say the whole process. And this is a difference compared to larger corporates, where you are sometimes a bit slower because you need more alignment meetings, you need more evaluation meetings, and so on. This could be a difference between large corporates and family-owned businesses. Yes. What else do we have? How can the method of design thinking be applied in this process? maybe something you want to elaborate on. Otherwise, I can also go on.
Yeah, so very good question again, because I think the process is a complete difference to design thinking. So usually we think about design thinking, we start with the problem, understanding a problem, and then developing a solution. And in this case, we kind of turn it around. So we start with the solution and then think about the problem. Still, I think a lot of the methods from design thinking and understanding user needs and really thinking about what are their jobs to be done, how can we solve these kind of issues. I mean, we always have a solution in mind, but really we need to understand, is there really a pain? Is there really a problem that we can solve with the technology? Or is this really not a big issue? Is it not a big problem? I think then we shouldn't even go further into that. If the pain point is not big enough, I think then it's not worth pursuing this direction with the technology. So you can have the greatest technology, but if you don't have the right problem to solve with it, it's really not that helpful.
Yeah, and also I think here also is like how we work with that. So we in innovation processes we differentiate between innovation instruments, which definitely the technology seeks application approach is one, and design thinking, which is a method, right? And the method and parts of the method of design thinking can of course be applied at certain stages, but we're not starting with empathizing the user. We are starting with the technology and then trying to empathize, is that a real problem? Is there a pain point? But what we have elaborated here, what we have outlined here, we're not digging too deep into this explorational part of design thinking. Then we have another questions. Which methods do you recommend for pain analysis, strategic fit, and time to market analysis? Yeah, I think, and here's exactly what we have talked about when it comes to method to pain analysis. What we do here is, of course, on the one hand side, the HYVE crowd is truly a method that you can use here. So the open innovation approach, like to really open up and see where could be, where got this problems. And then, of course, the other one is under pain analysis is the interviews. Of course, the expert interviews, because here again you have a really focused session where you can really in depth analyze if there's a pain in the certain use case that you have identified. And for strategic fit, of course, it really depends what you want to do and what name you want to drop here. But what we really do is can go, for example, use the VRIO approach, like what is now a valuable approach, where do the company has already capabilities that can be leveraged. And here we can use different frameworks that can be applied in that area, right? What else do we have? Yeah.
I think we have some very crowd-specific questions that I'm happy to answer. So the first one was, how do we recruit these innovators onto the platform? And is there any specific experience that is required? Do we need any specific profiles, and how do we find them? So first of all, the platform is open. So our approach is really open innovation. And basically everybody can join. And then it's a self-selection process. So the people who have a great idea, or who may come from an industry where they can see a technology being helpful, being useful, these people then go to the contest and submit their ideas. So all of the people, of course, they are private individuals, but in the end, they are also, of course, parts of businesses are working somewhere, so have this kind of experience that they bring in. But yeah, we don't really limit who can participate. So we try to be as open as possible, because you never know where a good idea can actually come from. And how do we recruit them? So usually we also try to communicate through our clients' networks, but then also, yeah, really do some advertising, try to find specific profiles. If we think an industry, for example, is interesting, maybe on LinkedIn, talk to people directly, and then also use the HYVE network. As you've seen, we have so many different clients from different industries, and that's really helpful to, yeah, get some interesting profiles onto our platform and get them involved.
Maybe I want to get back to the question that we have before when it comes to the strategic fit. So what we do, especially in the very early phase, is like that we do something like a pastel analysis, like really looking into the application fields, looking if they are if they have big opportunities based on the regulations that are here in the market, based on how they will grow. So we'll also look into the trends that are here and how this industry, what are the trending industries, so to say, when you compare them, what is growing, what is not growing, how big are the market sizes. So these are the strategic analyses that we are doing here. And we also have here the tech innovation radar, the tech radar at HYVE, where we have where we can do with that tool our 360-degree view on each of the application fields in each of the industries. And this is what we use then to really identify what is a strategic fit to the company and to the market. And this is one of these frameworks to explain them more in depth what we are using to elaborate and to validate the strategic fit for application field and use case. Yes.
Okay, and then we have another question about contests and the price of contests. And yeah, it really depends on how you run the contest and how much HYVE supports the process. So in some cases, we only provide the platform and access to the platform, and our clients can use the platform themselves. Just have to provide prize money and can really run almost most of the contests on their own. That's of course more cost effective. On the other hand, we can also support throughout the entire process. So we can support very on in understanding really the technology, framing it on the platform, how to present it, how to make clear that everybody on the community understands what the technology is about, what the strengths are, maybe what the weaknesses are, to get a good idea of where it could be applied. That, of course, then helps us in the selection process. The better we describe the technology initially, the less time we have to spend sorting out ideas that don't work. And then, of course, we also support the entire process of the selection and then also validation with expert interviews and everything that Flo talked about. So really, I think there's a lot of different scopes of how we can support. And that also is a great segue to the next question, which is whether we also offer workshops for companies that want to develop such ideas. And yes, we can also support in that. And really, it's also a question of how much, again, involvement our clients want. We can be very little involved, but we can also do the entire process on our own, get an initial briefing about the technology, try to understand as much as possible, and then run through the entire process and only discussing validated use cases in the end. So basically taking over most of the process, maybe getting some feedback in between about the technology. I think that's something that oftentimes we need from the outside world and from our clients to really get deep into understanding how fast is fast heating, for example, to understand what the technology is capable of. And then we can also really just hand over the result and say, okay, these are 3 interesting areas that you should dive deeper into. And here are 3 experts in each area that you should probably talk to. Okay, I think we've answered most of the questions, but Flo, happy for you to add your thoughts on that. If you have any other questions, now is your last chance to put them in the chat.
Yeah, we've still 4 minutes left, but yeah, I think you already said a lot of the important details. And I think about the last question, but maybe to add on here, like here we also see a huge variety on how consumer also want to open up their self to insights or to the involvement of others. And here we can really then also do completely internal campaigns to identify new technologies or new application fields for technology. And this is where I think our creativity comes into place, that we design the right tech 6 application process for the company and for its needs, so that can be successful in the end. And and here always the involvement of the employees is very important. Yeah. And there's a follow-up question on that. Will be more workshops like this one? I mean, if you like, I think we are more than open to continue this. Of course, at HYVE, we have a lot of these webinars. The next webinar, our next workshop like this will be the Sustainable Transformer Roundtable, which will be held in a couple of days, I guess on the 6th of June, with some very cool panel partners from industries, like from people from our network. They're talking about their knowledge and their experience. So yeah, we're having continuously more of these talks and of these webinars, and always happy for feedback, and always happy if we could create some value with our insights and our knowledge that we have gained the last couple of years. So, but the last words are going to my co-host Niklas, and you can then close the session and send everyone back to their desks.